Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
President Trump promised unity before his State of the Union last night and then delivered civil war. Here was the warning shot.
An economic miracle is taking place in the United States, and the only thing that can stop it are foolish wars, politics, or ridiculous partisan investigations. If there is going to be peace and legislation, there cannot be war and investigation. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, the president shut down the federal government over his border wall, and now he's threatening to shut down the Congress. He's telling it, you're not going to go anywhere as long as you're causing me trouble with these investigations. Sound familiar? We heard a similar call from Richard Nixon in his State of the Union in 1974.
I believe the time has come to bring that investigation and the other investigations of this matter to an end. 1 year of Watergate is enough.
Well, President Trump's call for Democrats to back off their investigations comes as the new Democratic majority this week ramps up its oversight of the administration. And today, the House Intelligence Committee voted to send more than 50 unredacted Russian-related transcripts to Special Counsel Robert Mueller. And last September, by the way, when that committee was still chaired by Devin Nunes, Republicans blocked Democrats' efforts to do just that. Well, today, the new Democratic chairman, Adam Schiff, also announced the committee will pursue an expanded probe now, not only into Russia, but also President Trump's all foreign financial interests. President Trump responded to that development with a personal attack on Schiff.
This morning, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, said he was going to launch a deep investigation into not only Russia, but...
Did you say Adam Schiff?
Adam Schiff.
Oh,
he said
never heard of him. He has no basis to do that. He's just a political hack who's trying to build a name for himself. It's called presidential harassment, and it's unfortunate, and it really does hurt our country.
You never heard of him, but he's a hack. Anyway, Schiff responded to the president's broadside on Twitter, writing, I can understand why the idea of meaningful oversight terrifies the president. Several of his close associates are going to jail. Others await trial, and criminal investigations continue. We're going to do our job and won't be distracted or intimidated by threats or attacks. Well, I'm joined right now by Democratic Congresswoman Jackie Spear of California, who sits on the House Intelligence Committee, Michael Beschloss, NBC News presidential historian, Donna Brazile, former DNC chair, and Betsy Woodruff, politics reporter for the Daily Beast. What a quartet. We're going to get a lot of perspectives here. Jackie Spear, Congresswoman, I think this is interesting. That was a threat last night for the president. It was a threat, right?
There's no question that it was a veiled threat. What was most interesting is how he framed it as presidential harassment this morning. If anything, it was congressional harassment because it was seeking a quid pro quo, meaning if you want legislation and peace, you've got to stop with the investigations. So I think he, once again, has got it all wrong when it comes to harassment. He's only been the perpetrator most of his life.
Michael Beschloss, in a big picture way, is this unusual for a president of the United States to say to all members of Congress, if you use your oversight role involving me, you're in trouble. I'm going to shut your place down, this Congress down.
It's a complete shock. We haven't seen anything like this in history, Chris, where a president basically says, you do not stop the investigations that may show my legal or even criminal liabilities. Maybe I'll just start vetoing all sorts of bills and, shut down the well-being of the American people. He's essentially saying, I am thinking of leveraging the future of America, our national security, our economic health, in order to stop this legal and criminal potential investigation into me. We've never seen anything like this before.
It's like a protester in the old days saying, no justice, no peace.
That's
Remember
right. I was absolutely.
But this is the most powerful person on earth saying this.
Well, essentially, Chris, he's telling members of Congress who takes an oath of office to violate the Constitution. The Constitution explicitly say that members of Congress, they have the legislative body, have the oversight responsibility of the government. And he's telling members of Congress that they should not do their job. The other thing, Chris, as you all know, last night he extended an olive branch, and then on the other hand, he had a whip. He said, basically, you do what I say. He didn't call for unity. He called for obedience. He wants members of Congress to basically follow his lead and not the lead of
What was that little preamble about? Why do you think he went through that little foreplay, if you will, politically? Said, I'm going to be nice, let's be nice, and then put the knife out there.
Well, let's talk about visions, not vengeance, results, not resistance. Basically, and then, of course, he did the little, and you socialists there. We know that, well, we've been called everything in the book. Look, the members of the Democratic caucus will do their job. They will uphold their constitutional responsibility, but they will hold this administration accountable.
He didn't just call you socialist. He condemned you to being like the guy in Venezuela, that dictator down in Maduro. He said, you're part like that. It was rougher than that.
Well, this president is known for his insults.
Anyway, Democratic leaders in both chambers seized on the president's threat. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said it suggests Trump is scared by the investigations.
What is the president afraid of? If he had nothing to hide, he'd shrug his shoulders at these investigations.
And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said her members won't be intimidated either. Quote, it was a threat. It was an all-out threat. It's our congressional responsibility. And if we didn't do it, we would be delinquent in that. Let me ask you about this, Betsy, because I can't quite figure out the game plan here. Now, last week, Matt Whitaker, the acting attorney general, said this whole Mueller thing's going to be over soon. Well, we don't know what that was. That intimidating? Some people think it was. Then the president comes out last night and said, shorten this thing up, get it over with. Does he think shortening the Mueller probe by a month or two, which is all he could possibly do by a little intimidation, is going to keep Mueller from getting the goods on him? Is that what he thinks?
That certainly seems to be the subtext of his public comments on the Mueller investigation. The reality is, most of the reporting indicates this investigation is coming toward its apex. We know Mueller's investigators are working on a report, sort of bringing together what they've found out. However, this move that the House Intelligence Committee has taken is really important. They're turning over all these transcripts, and if any of Trump's officials told things to Congress that are in contradiction to what they told Mueller's team, that means those people could potentially be in criminal territory. Members of the House Intelligence Committee, who me and my colleagues have spoken with, have said they believe it's possible that several people very close to the president, including, they say, possibly the president's son, Donald Trump Jr., and Eric Prince, the Blackwater chief, could have lied to their committee. And that's part of the reason they've long been eager to get these transcripts in Mueller's hands.
So let me go to the Congresswoman Spear on this. It seems to me that the special counsel, Mr. Mueller, will now have in his hands, if he doesn't have them already, unredacted transcripts, not just something that's hidden from. Nothing is hidden. He gets it all. Is there anything in there you think he might be surprised by that is perjurious?
Well, I think what is most important is that once he has these transcripts, he is then in a position to act upon those transcripts if there has been any actions that suggest that there has been perjury to Congress. I think what's really important is that we realize that lying to Congress is a felony, and it will be charged, and those who do that are going to suffer the consequences. The only thing that the Intelligence Committee is seeking is the truth. And the president should not be worried if there's nothing to hide about? We are always concerned about the fact that the Russian engagement with the president before he was president may have something to do with his bromance with Vladimir Putin since he's been president. It's very disturbing to me that he would tear up the interpreter's notes when he had a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and then in subsequent meetings didn't have an interpreter there at all. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was some discussion about the Moscow Tower for Trump, because that letter of intent has never expired. So you could argue that that is still pending.
Well, the House Oversight Committee Chair, Elijah Cummings, whose committee has broad jurisdiction to investigate this president and his administration, said Congress is simply doing its job. Here he is.
It's not about partisan investigations. We are doing what is demanded by our Constitution. That is to be a check and balance on the executive branch.
It is Thursday, the 7th of February of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life, and we deserve a little bit of sizzle now, don't we? I can feel Mueller Friday coming on. Oh, yeah. And just a quick program note. I don't know if I will be able to get an actual... I was considering recording a show early here and putting it up for tomorrow. I'm not quite sure if I'll be able to do that, but there will be something, well, entertaining in this space, so do stay tuned. And also, I'm not sure if I'll be able to have a show, a regular show on Tuesday, because I may be getting in so late, and I don't know if I'll be able to put one together and have the energy. So we'll see about that. But Wednesday of next week, definitely back in the swing of things, and the schedule will be back on its regular schedule. And it should be back on its regular schedule around Tuesday sometime, early, hopefully. I do see that there's an even bigger storm coming in over the weekend, so I'll be in Southern California, of course, but then Monday evening, I begin my trek back north, and so I may be coming into weather, and I don't know what that's going to entail and what kind of delays it will impose. So stay tuned, but we have content, and Netroots Radio continues, because Resistance Radio resists as the Founding Fathers originally intended. Nancy Pelosi did clap back at Trump coming into her house and making threats. And he's getting a little perturbed. Who's Adam Schiff? See, this is the problem. When the guy they pick to sort of like become president of the United States, and who are they? Well, the guy they pick had to go through that FSB American Civics course for asshats, dupes, and idiots, and they just cannot teach the nuances of how our system works. They can get the broad brush aspect, but the nuances is a little tough. Though on the other hand, does anyone doubt for a moment that what is happening in Virginia is not a coordinated rat-fucking operation? I know it's a little early. Of course, if you're on podcasts, it could be at any time, but it's a little early even in the show to start using the F word. But I can only use that word because that's how they describe themselves. They're not dirty tricksters. They call themselves rat fuckers, and this is a rat fucking operation. And how do rat fucking operations work? Well, unfortunately for us, there's a bit of truth to it now, isn't it? And they know how we will respond because we are the good people. And good people will respond in the good way. And that's, hey buddy, you're fired. And they get sent away. And who comes in to fill the vacuum? Well, after they've gone down 2, 3, 4, how many levels is it going to get before they finally find a Republican who wore blackface and assaulted women, so that these calls for stepping down and resigning will cease. That's the only time they'll cease, as soon as they find a Republican who's done all of that and more. And then it'll be considered harassment. Presidential harassment. That's what Trump is complaining and whining about today. Presidential harassment. This is from the guy who said that Obama wasn't born in the United States and he had to prove he was. Presidential harassment. Well, welcome to America, comrade. In my book, it's called Precedented Harassment. There is great precedent, and it's called, I think, the Congress of the United States of America. They were put there specifically to harass the president and keep him in line. And it would always be a him. Remember, Abigail Adams argued for a more equal state, and John said, "Are you kidding me? You run the roost here. I'm not letting you run the roost. The only time I get my way is out there." Yeah, equality for all. What's on the rest of the menu here? In the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham ordered a withdrawal of the majority of the state's National Guard troops assigned to the southern border. Hey, a town along the border in Arizona had zip wire, the barbed wire, rolls of barbed wire put up on their barrier there. And the town voted to take it down. And when I say the town, I mean all the citizens. It was a referendum. The GOP gave banks a $21 billion tax cut, and they used it to fire over 4,300 employees. And guess what? They're on tap to fire thousands more. Yeah, they need it for their stock buybacks. Sociopathic wealth hoarders. That's what they are. They're not billionaires. Sociopathic wealth hoarders. And House Intel Chair Adam Schiff is ramping up the Russia investigation with quiet hints it may implicate Devin Nunes. Devin Nunes. He called the press an embarrassment to themselves. They always project, don't they? Always. After the break, we then move to the chef's table, where a Border Patrol agent in California illegally sold guns to an undercover agent out of the trunk of his car. Oh, did you know that the gun industry sells weaponry of all types, grenades, rocket launchers, to law enforcement officers at a reduced rate, specifically to sell them illegally? No wonder there's such a push against gun regulation. And a key ally of Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari warned that foreign election observers would be sent back in body bags. That sounds like a threat. All that and more. In West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, bon appetit. I'm looking forward to this great birthday bash for my father's 90th on Sunday and making the trip down there. It's a bit bittersweet. My son and I had just been putting together our calendars to link up when we would go down there together. We were going to make that road trip. And so to make it without him, as I said, is a bit bittersweet. I so miss him. If you go to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will notice to the rightish of the page the chat room link monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the contribute button. And if you could become a recurring Patreon to Netroots Radio, you really help mitigate the expanding expenses that seem to accumulate. You know, it's like out in the universe, you know, little bits of dust clumped together. That's what expenses are. They grow into planet size if you're not careful. Oh, boy. So, yeah, we just had another issue here at the mothership. Actually, a important monitor in which I'm able to monitor levels and aspects of the broadcast. And looks like I might have to get a new one. We'll see. It might be simply just cabling. Wouldn't that be nice? But regardless, cabling or a whole machine, your recurring contribution to Netroots Radio helps us offset those expanding expenses, and we are forever grateful for you doing that. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that platform, and I got to tell you, thank you, Tom. Jeez. Because there's an able body there, and we like it. And you will too. All right. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary about 10 minutes before showtime on Daily Co's, which reminds me, if I do have a show tomorrow and recorded one, you'll be able to find that because I will have posted that diary to come up automatically at 10 minutes before showtime. Okay, I may not be able to get it to all social media because I will be en route, and you're not supposed to take your eyes off the road to work a device, especially when you're on icy snow in the mountains. So I've read. Actually, I have experience in the mountains on icy snow, and you don't want to be distracted. Okay. Pick up podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy by way of Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, iTunes, YouTube, iHeart, etc., etc., etc. And you can find the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. Okay, I got through it somehow. Yeah, you know, sometimes these breaks are good and bad because I find myself breaking up a little bit thinking about my son, and it's good that the break is there because I can pull it together, but sometimes it bleeds over. So I'll get through this. It's fine. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays is by Adrienne Masha Varkiani. New Mexico Governor Grisham ordered a withdrawal of the majority of the state's National Guard troops that have been assigned to the U.S.-Mexico border just before Trump delivered his State of the Union address. Oh, cool. Get it in, you know. New Mexico will not take part in the president's charade of border fear-mongering by misusing our diligent National Guard troops, Grisham said in a statement. I should jump in real quick and remind folks that the Netroots Radio Style Manual really precludes us from using the P word as assigned to Trump. But in this situation, we had to use the term president because it is truly part of her written statement. And to do otherwise might not give the full weight of what Governor Grisham was relaying. Okay. She continued, I recognize and appreciate the legitimate concerns of residents and officials in southwestern New Mexico, particularly Hidalgo County, who have asked for our assistance as migrants and asylum seekers continue to appear at their doorstep. But what the assistance that they were asking for was, can we have a facility in which we can house, feed, and protect these people until they can be processed as asylum seekers? And if they're not, well, then the law says they got to go. Trump keeps saying that they are coming in here illegally. They are not. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do to be able to apply for asylum. But Stephen Miller and all these other people don't want refugees and asylum seekers, because where are they coming from? They're coming from places in which we are culpable in the destruction of their society, and nobody ever wants to see and take care of the victims that they created. Emily Singer of Share Blue Media brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. You know, somebody, and a lot of people actually had to benefit from the GOP's tax scam. And why shouldn't the banks benefit the most? I mean, they've been doing it for a long time, huh? They got a lot of practice. According to Bloomberg News, major U.S. banks saw a $21 billion tax cut in 2018, beating the tax cut estimates the banks themselves projected they'd receive from the new law, all thanks to the Republican-passed tax bill. Are your taxes higher now? Yeah, it's not just Sheldon Adelson that got your money. I mean, you think it was just Sheldon? Oh, please. And what did the banks do with that massive windfall? They cut an estimated 4,300 jobs, with plans to cut even more, and spent some of the tax savings on stock buybacks and boosting dividends, further lining their own pockets, according to Bloomberg's report. Democratic Senate Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont. Let's make that emphasis upon independence, shall we? Well, they chastised the banks and other big corporations for this type of buyback in a New York Times op-ed published just this last Sunday. For too many workers, far too many workers have watched corporate executives cash in on corporate stock buybacks while they get handed a pink slip, they wrote. Well, come on. Cogs are just cogs. If you start giving soul to a cog, the next thing you know, they're going to want something more than the minimum wage. Most likely going to go a little bit over into our break period, but that's okay. It was a fairly long clip at the top. So, and anyway, this is a salon. There's a little bit of leeway here, okay? Cody Fenwick of Alternet brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. With Democrats fully in control of the House of Representatives, Representative Little Adam Schiff. Who is he? Little Adam Schiff, obviously a political hack. I don't know anything about him, but he's a political hack, and his name is Little Adam Schiff. Who is he? Now heads the Chamber's Intelligence Committee and is reopening the investigation into Russian interference in American politics and its collusion. I see conspiracy with Donald Trump's campaign. Under his leadership, the investigation will be much more sprawling and far-reaching than anything imagined by the Republican majority that used to control the committee. GOP lawmakers had prematurely ended their probe of the matter and had attempted to exonerate Trump over objections from Democrats in April of 2018. A report from the Daily Beast Wednesday details the Democrats' new expansive version of the investigation. Indeed, it is quite expensive, and there are 5 points, 5 lanes in which they are going to investigate this administration. So it's not just Donald Trump, mind you. It's a bold strategy, but Democrats were expected to deeply examine the issue after the cursory work done by House Republicans. Schiff did mention one other aspect of the investigation, though, which will surprise many and potentially spark fear in his predecessor. He said that the committee will investigate efforts to impede or obstruct the investigation, including conduct by those in the Congress. Quote, end quote. That seems to be a direct signal that the committee will examine the behavior of one Representative Devin Nunes, Repug of California, who ran the committee before Schiff took over and was widely seen as a Trump toady running interference in the investigation on Trump's behalf. Seen by many? This means the House Intel Committee will investigate how one of his own members, former chair at Devin Nunes, obstructed its investigation, said former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti. As a member of Congress, Nunes has significant constitutional protections, so it's not clear what he might have done that could actually pose a real legal threat to him. But it seems that if he committed any crimes in trying to run a cover-up for the president, Schiff wants to find out. Well, I guess cover-up for Trump. Now, the Daily Beast has previously reported that Special Counsel Robert Mueller is interested in scrutinizing a meeting with dozens of foreign officials that Nunes attended in the run-up to Trump's inauguration, though it's not clear if he specifically suspects the congressman of doing any criminal wrongdoing. I suppose that on your way to treason, you could give the defense that you have diplomatic immunity now. Yeah, I think you could use that as a defense. But I certainly remember in other parts of American history where the turncoat, whomever they may be, was duly dealt with. Let's go on now to our break, and when we come back, we're going to go through weather from around the world, and boy, is there weather again. And everything we had went east. Sorry. Okay. Well, when we come back from doing weather from around the world, then we're going to finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Jason Goldman. Male humpback whales are the concert singers of the marine world. These ocean giants belt out tunes that can be heard perhaps hundreds of miles away. The songs attract friends and lovers and maybe keep rivals at bay. And now we learn that humpbacks in different ocean basins, the South Atlantic and the Indian, on opposite sides of the African continent, share melodies.
The songs are certainly learnt between individuals, so it's thought to be the best example of horizontal cultural transmission, so from peer to peer rather than from parent to offspring.
Melinda Reckdahl, marine conservation scientist with the Wildlife Conservation Society's Ocean Giants program. The International Whaling Commission has identified 7 distinct humpback whale breeding populations in the southern hemisphere. These are whales that meet up in the same warm tropical waters each year to mate and give birth. But when mating season is over, the whales migrate to the chilly polar regions to gorge on krill. Using genetics and photographic surveys of migrating humpbacks, researchers know that males in these colder feeding areas interact with other males from different breeding populations. But scientists did not know that this meetup provides the whales with the opportunity to have vocal jam sessions where they trade melodies. And the amount of song overlap between the whales that breed off of Gabon in the Atlantic and those that breed near Madagascar in the Indian Ocean varies year to year. That's according to a study of more than 1,500 individual sounds that were recorded between 2001 and 2005. The results are in the journal Royal Society Open Science.
So it makes sense that in some years there may be different oceanographic conditions, more patchily distributed prey that may mean populations or individuals have to move further to find food, and that might bring them into closer contact with neighbouring populations and facilitate song exchange.
The findings present researchers with new opportunities to understand how culture is transmitted among animals. But it also allows even greater insight into the workings of populations of humpback whales.
It shows you connectivity potentially on yearly timescales, which is what genetics information doesn't.
Genetic data can show that different populations had historical interactions. But songs can reveal how two populations interact on a much faster timescale. By combining song information from these populations with whales that breed off the Atlantic coast of Brazil, Rectal says researchers can gain a more comprehensive understanding of the dynamics of global humpback whale culture.
Humpback whale song is an incredibly unique and complex display, and it's quite amazing how complex it is and how it is such an amazing example of culture in animals.
Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Jason Goldman.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
For an expectant mother, taking care of her developing baby means taking good care of herself. One way she can do this is by ensuring she gets vaccinated. If a woman is or might be pregnant during flu season, it's especially important to get her annual flu shot, preferably before the end of October. In addition, women should be vaccinated against whooping cough during the third trimester of each pregnancy. Failure to get vaccinated places both mother and baby at increased risk for serious complications of these infections, including hospitalization and even death. If you're pregnant or planning to get pregnant, ask your healthcare provider when you should get your vaccines. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. When it snows this winter, make sure you clear more than your driveway. Before you hit the road and before you get in the driver's seat, check to be sure that your vehicle's tailpipe is clear of snow. If the tailpipe is blocked, carbon monoxide, an odorless, colorless, and deadly gas produced by your engine can build up quickly inside your vehicle, poisoning anyone inside. To learn more, call 1-800-CDC-INFO. That's 1-800-232-4636.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Once upon a time, there was a place where the prevailing ethic of the very richest people was that monetary self-indulgence was tacky and that wealth was a matter of good fortune, carrying with it an obligation to the common good. Believe it or not, that place was the USA. Where did it go? The prevailing ethic of today's billionaires' club is one of entitlement, superiority, and grandiosity, including flaunting their wealth like the robber barons of old. For example, a ludicrously large, quote, house is under construction in Florida for one of our modern-day barons, boasting 11 kitchens, 5 swimming pools, and a 30-car garage. Worse, the billionaire class is asserting its sense of plutocratic privilege by weaponizing their huge fortunes. They've been spending massively and often secretly to build a culture of inequality across our land. To their dismay, however, America's workaday majority is rebelling, with newly elected Democratic populists like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez proposing a 70% tax rate on incomes above $10 million. Oh, the horror, shrieked billionaires like computer magnate Michael Dell. Name a country where that's worked, he demanded dismissively. Okay, Michael, how about the United States? Yes, between the end of World War II in 1945 and Ronald Reagan's start of coddle-the-rich government in 1981, the top tax rate never fell below 70%, and that was a period of unparalleled growth and prosperity for America's middle class. This is Jim Hightower saying, Dell, who lives in a sprawling 33,000-square-foot house with all the charm of a shopping mall, confuses value with money and has no grasp of the essential richness of American egalitarianism. We should not be listening to people like him, much less being governed by them, just because they're rich.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
The Democrats, who now control the House of Representatives, are reacting to a threat from the president delivered during the State of the Union address. You remember.
An economic miracle is taking place in the United States, and the only thing that can stop it are foolish wars, politics, or ridiculous partisan investigations.
The chairs of 3 of the most powerful House committees, Adam Schiff of Intelligence, Elijah Cummings of Oversight and Government Reform, and Gerald Nadler of the Judiciary Committee, all weighed in.
Well, I want to address the president's remarks last night, his effort to discourage any meaningful oversight of the administration. That's a non-starter. We are not going to be intimidated or threatened by the president.
We are doing what is demanded by our Constitution. That is to be a check and balance on the executive branch. As a matter of fact, we're sworn to do that, and we're going to do that.
To say that we can't do that is to say we shouldn't do our constitutional duty. It's to assert an executive preeminence that one would think he might want to be a dictator. He cannot escape, nor should any president escape congressional oversight.
House Intelligence Committee Chair Adam Schiff announced that in addition to reopening the committee's Russia investigation, they're initiating a sweeping new look into Trump's finances. Brian Williams has the details.
Schiff laid out 5 key areas of inquiry. These are big and broad. 1, the Russian government's ongoing efforts to influence the U.S. political process. 2, any links or coordination between Russia and Trump world. 3, whether any foreign actor holds financial or other leverage over the president or has sought to compromise him. 4, whether the president or anyone in his orbit has been vulnerable to foreign pressure or tried to shape U.S. policy in service of foreign interests. And 5, whether any actors, foreign or domestic, have tried to influence investigations into these matters, including those in the Congress.
Of course, when asked about the new investigation, Trump did what he does best. He lied, claiming he's never heard of Schiff. Then he went on the attack.
He has no basis to do that. He's just a political hack who's trying to build a name for himself, and I think that's fine because that's what they do. But there would be no reason to do that. No other politician has to go through that. It's called presidential harassment.
No, actually, it's called congressional oversight and the American system of checks and balances. The House was busy on Wednesday with new hearings, 2 on climate change, the first in 8 years, and in the Judiciary Committee, a contentious hearing on gun violence and a new background checks bill. Florida Republican Matt Gaetz tried to argue that violence caused by undocumented immigrants is worse than that from homegrown gun violence. He also attempted to have the fathers of 2 kids killed in the Parkland massacre last February ejected. CNN has more.
Republican Matt Gaetz of Florida using the hearing to actively campaign for the president's border wall. This was a hearing about gun violence. This did not go over well with some in attendance.
H.R. 8 would not have stopped many of the circumstances I raised, but a wall, a barrier on the southern border may have, and that's what we're fighting for. We have an immigration system that allows people to come here violently. We engage in...
There will be no comments or demonstrations.
It's comments angering the fathers of 2 victims of the Parkland school massacre, Manuel Oliver and Fred Gutenberg.
At one point, Rhode Island Democrat David Cicilline posed this question.
Is there any committee rule that prevents a member of Congress from reciting false statements in a committee hearing that are unsupported by the evidence? Or are members of Congress entitled to just make things up?
The House Judiciary Committee has been hearing testimony on a bipartisan measure that would require background checks for all gun sales and most gun transfers.
The House Oversight Committee held a hearing on H.R. 1, a Democratic measure that would prohibit the purging of voter rolls, compel states to adopt independent redistricting commissions, and enact a host of other changes to the electoral process. Committee Chairman Elijah Cummings laid out the issue.
1 year ago today, on my mother's dying bed at 92 years old, former sharecropper, her last words were, "Do not let them take our votes away from us." She had fought and seen people harmed, beaten, trying to vote. Talk about inalienable rights. Voting is crucial, and I don't give a damn how you look at it. There are efforts to stop people from voting. That's not right. This is not Russia. This is the United States of America. And I will fight until the death to make sure every citizen, whether they're Green Party, whether they're Freedom Party, whether they're Democrat, whether they're Republican, whoever has that right to vote, because it is the essence of our democracy. I want to be clear that when they look back on this moment 200 years from now, that there are those of us who stood up, and they'll be able to say they stood up and said they defended the right to vote.
And that's a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 23 degrees Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy. Winds are now actually out of the north-northeast. They have shifted ever so slightly, though they continue at light and variable with about 1 or 2 miles of sustained whatever and less. That's what light and variable is. We are, let's see, we're not under a winter storm watch, though we will be over the weekend. I may have a couple of relatively dry days to get out of here, though there is 20% chance of precipitation in the next couple of days, though it says 0.000 inches. So that sounds like 0% possibility, but that's just me. Okay, so overnight lows look like they'll be in the upper 20s, low 30s. Daytime highs will be in the mid 50s. Pollen is considered none. The air quality index has gone up to 61 parts per million, considered moderate for healthy people, not too good for those with breathing conditions. Daytime UV index is low at 2. Barometric pressure is falling at 30.05 inches. Visibility is at 9 miles. And relative humidity is 90%. Oh, my. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. London is 49 and partly cloudy. Paris is 51 and cloudy. Rome is 59 and sunny. Wow, I'm going to Rome. The Spanish Steps this time of year when it's dry and you're having a nice espresso. Oh, it's very lovely. Kiev, 32 degrees and fair. Kabul, 17 degrees and clear. Hong Kong, 68 degrees and fair. Tokyo is 53 degrees and partly cloudy with a weather advisory. Will it be dry air? It is a gale advisory. So hold on to your hats if you happen to be in Tokyo right now. 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And it is a gale warning. Okay, Sydney, Australia is 75 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 41 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. And New York is 40 degrees Fahrenheit, cloudy, with your own gale watch. Hold on to your hats, button up that top button, stay warm. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Noor Al-Sabai of Raw Story brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A Customs and Border Patrol officer in California has been indicted for illegal gun sales since at least 2014 and was busted after he was caught selling some to an undercover agent. Splinter reported Wednesday that Wei Zhu, a CBP officer at the LA and Long Beach Seaport, has been accused by federal prosecutors of purchasing guns and reselling them on the Cal Guns online marketplace. In some cases, Splinter's Anna Merlin noted, Zhu allegedly bought guns accessible to California law enforcement officers for resale. This is where the story is for me. And he did it without a licensed firearms dealer. He just bought it direct. The Customs Border Patrol officer, prosecutor said, sold 4 guns to an undercover agent in a parking lot. 3 of them were sold directly from Zhu's trunk. And he reportedly gave the undercover agent a list of other weapons he had for sale. Now, the case offers a glimpse at California's off-roster gun laws in which law enforcement agents are able to purchase firearms that are not on the roster of weapons available to the public. In their complaint against Zhu, federal prosecutors say that off-roster guns garner higher than retail prices in private sales because of the lesser restrictions placed on them. In addition, they allege manufacturers frequently offer off-roster handguns to qualified law enforcement personnel at a reduced price, which further increases the potential profit margin for law enforcement personnel who resell them.
Je te donne seulement l'amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Paul Karsten and Alexis Akagariam of Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A key ally of Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari said people from overseas who sought to intervene in the country's elections to be held in little over a week would go back in body bags. The governor of the northern state of Kaduna, Nasir Al-Rufai, made the comments during a discussion program on the Nigerian Television Authority. When the topic of the international community's role in elections was raised, it followed an international outcry over the suspension of Nigeria's top judge. Now, the February 16th vote in Africa's top oil producer pits Buhari, a military ruler in the 80s, was voted into office in 2015, wink, wink, against main opposition candidate Atiku Abubakar, who is a businessman and former vice president in a race widely seen as tight that has become increasingly rancorous in the last few weeks. The discussion about the role of foreign countries in elections was raised on the program, in which references were made to concerns expressed by the EU, the US, and Britain over the suspension of Chief Justice Walter Onnoghen over allegedly breaching asset declaration rules. We're waiting for the person who will come and intervene. They will go back in body bags because nobody will come to Nigeria and tell us how to run our country. Well, that's a little bit extreme. Can't you just talk to them and say, look, maybe it's not a good idea. No, come here. Monitor our elections because we're not part of the civilized world, apparently, even though we're a major oil producer and now we make the rules? Body bags, really? He continued, we've got that independence and we're trying to run our country as decently as possible. Really now? Decently? By threatening to send election monitors back in body bags? Last year, Buhari and Atiku both signed an agreement stating a commitment to hold a peaceful election. Well, following the comments, the main opposition, People's Democratic Party, said it would be left with no option than to consider a review of its signatory in the National Peace Accord if the ruling party did not stop comments, threats, and incendiary actions. The Chief Justice, who was suspended and replaced with an acting replacement last month, could preside over a dispute over the election result. Nigeria's judiciary has helped resolve electoral disputes in past votes, some of which have been marred by violence and vote rigging. Wow, the future of the United States is here, isn't it now? All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, and I don't know if I'll be doing a show recorded for tomorrow, but stay tuned. Something entertaining will be in place regardless, and we'll be back full swing definitely on Wednesday, if not sooner, so stay tuned for that. Now, Netroots Radio will broadcast on 24/7 all through the weekend for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up with you at least on Wednesday, if not sooner, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.